Hello, everyone. My name is Surjan. Welcome to developing and maintaining a niche community in video games. I know that's a lengthy subject, but bear with me. My name is Surjan. I am 29 years old. I've been in the games industry for 10 years now, with seven of it being community and marketing. And before that, I was working as a game journalist. So I was pretty much always in gaming in some shape or form. I worked on multiple projects such as Arcade, S4 League, Ironside, Conqueror's Blade, Conan Exiles, Metal Hellsinger, and most recently Dune Awakening. Other than my day job, I've been working on my own community named Horror Visuals, or the Horror Games community. It's a niche community on Twitter or YouTube and Twitch and other places, but the main channel is Twitter. It has quite a lot of people, grew organically, and I've been using this platform to help indie games just market their games for absolutely free. I help them find better marketing strategies for their games, just give them advice on how to better market their games. um, so first thing we got to understand before going ahead, what is a community? I know it's a cliche question, but it is something that I see a lot of people may tend to misunderstand. For this, we first have to understand what is not a community. A community is not a group of customers. It's not your fans. It's not an audience that you are speaking to. It can be those, and it will be those down the line, depending on how you manage your community. But when it first begins, something like what you got to understand is that it's just a collective. It's a group of people with mutual interests, right? They're there because they're interested in your product, hopefully. Think of it as a garden. I'm going to speak about the garden allegory towards the end of the presentation, but think of your community as this living and breathing entity, right? It's not just a group of customers. You have to first understand that. I noticed that bigger companies or executives or publishers tend to go through that route, like, hey, these are our customers and we should treat them like customers. I think that is not a good approach. Um, Especially when you think about gaming communities, at its essence, gaming is a community driven activity, right? We've been playing multiplayer games for over 10 years now. Co op games, LAN parties, online games. We've been playing together for a really long time. But even if it's not multiplayer games, even for just single player games, there has always been a community, right? Think back like game stops, gaming conventions, uh, gaming magazines, or in today's world, just think about again single player games. They all have their small communities. It's always been a community driven activity, and it's always going to be some sort of community driven activity. Community is something that you're going to find everywhere in the gaming space, whether you like it or whether you're a part of it or not. Um, but when it comes to these gaming communities, you will see that they take different shapes today, right? When you look at 10 years or 15 years ago, there weren't as many genres. Like visual novel was still a thing. We would have visual novel games, but we wouldn't have 100 new visual novel games a day, right? Like it's today, right? We wouldn't have farming games every new day. We were getting a new farming game, right? Today we have an endless amount of genres, subgenres, thematic genres. We have a lot of different branches of video games, and when it comes to that, it also affects communities as well, right? All of these subgenres, these smaller series games, they all have their own small cubicles, and they all have their own communities. I found out, in my experience, that running or maintaining or starting a smaller community is easier, right? Obviously, on the presentation, you have Animal Crossing. It's not a small game, but it is a smaller game when compared to, say, Fortnite or Call of Duty. When a community is smaller, this creates better engagement opportunities for you, for your marketing, and your community. Because at the end of the day, you want them to stay as a community, you want them to engage with each other, and you want them to just exist as a singular mass. That's what's going to be best for your product and the way you're running your community. So, something important when running these, especially these smaller communities, let's say an indie community or a community for a game that has a rather smaller player base, again, smaller than Fortnite, let's say, it's an easy example to give. I found out that setting a personable tone of voice will help you in the long run. When you start your community, you might see that people usually give the advice of like, follow this trend, do this, use this vocabulary. That usually helped maybe back in the day, but today that's not really the case. Today, when you think of today's social media, or just look at the video platforms that you yourself use, think of YouTube, right? Just recently, YouTube blocked ad blockers, and people were really pissed about that. And the reason for that is nobody wants to see ads. I don't want to see ads. You don't want to see ads. What if we had a ad right now just cutting me? You don't want that, and people are just tired of that. And one mistake I see a lot of community managers or marketing specialists do is that they still follow a kind of marketing vocabulary, right? And the thing is, people usually see through this whale these days, right? Think of a magician. Maybe 40 years ago, when you watch a magician, you would think that, oh my God, this guy is so talented. He's actually a wizard. But today, when you watch a magician, you're like, okay, this guy's a sham because you can see through it. And that's how kind of marketing works these days. With Gen Z using the internet, even newer generations using the internet, they're involving themselves in the social media that we use. Everyone is more informed today compared to 10 or 15 years ago, and they are able to see through the marketing vocabulary. So the best thing to do to to pick your community from off the ground is to adopt an organic language. You just throw everything about marketing vocabulary down the window and just adopt an organic vocabulary. I think this is the most important thing. And this is the thing that I always tell indie developers when I give them advice on how to market their games. Because when you go to a friend and you want to talk to them about a game, you don't use exclamation marks, you don't use hashtags, you don't use marketing vocabulary that the guy on LinkedIn told you to use. You would just go and talk to them organically. Obviously, you are at the end of the day, you are trying to sell something. I understand that. But it is important to keep in mind that the demographic that you're trying to sell your game to is more informed, and they will see through what you're doing. So it is just something to remember whenever you're creating your new marketing campaign, new social media post, new event, contest. It's important to remember that you're talking to real people, real organic people. They're not just faces at the other end of the screen, right? You're not marketing Coca-Cola anymore. You're marketing a video game that they're gonna play, that they're gonna pay for, and that they're gonna talk about. So it is important to let them remind them that you're a real person. This game is run by real people, organic people, You don't have to wear a mask or be a magician. You just have to be organic and just run your community like that. I think the personable tone of voice will help you in the long run. Whether you're an indie publisher, indie developer, self publishing, or you're working for a bigger company. I know in those situations, you usually have guidelines that you have to follow, but it is your job to find a good balance of, hey, how can we stop using a set marketing tone while still being in the line and just trying new things. It's an interesting puzzle to solve, I think, when it comes to that too. I like that challenge. Like, how can I still stay in the line, but adopt a new voice and just follow the trends like a normal person would. Speaking of puzzles, my next wow, look at that! My next slide, we have puzzle pieces. So, the golden question, right? Pretty much why we're here, and pretty much the thing that everyone is curious about these days. How do you make your community from scratch? Let's say, like, if you're developing a game, or if you're a part of a team that is developing a game, and let's say this is a new game, the community approach probably scares you a lot, because what if nobody wants to see this game? What if nobody comes into our social media page and interacts with our post? And then what do we do? It's kind of a interesting thing to think about. The first thing, you got to understand that it's going to take a while. It could take a day, it could take a week, it could take a month, it could take a year. At the end of the day, it depends on your product too. Like, for example, think about games made in Unreal Engine 5. When you look at them a year ago, they looked amazing and they were like the big kid, the new kid in the block. They were interesting. When you see an Unreal Engine, a horror game made in Unreal Engine 5, you will be like, oh my God, this looks great. And you would follow the development process. But today, that's not really the case, because there are a lot of games made in Unreal Engine 5. So what do? You have to do something different with your community to let people know that this is a different game. So while back in the day, it might just take a day for a development team to become successful or famous on social media, today that might not be the case. Or think about smaller games. Think about Stardew Valley, right? That game took off incredibly well and just became successful while being a small game with a small community. Um, so it all depends on your product, no matter how good you are at your work. But if you don't have much to show from your game, it still doesn't mean that your community will be dead from the beginning, right? It just requires consistency, and it requires you to be aware of and following social media trends. Again, coming back to my previous points, what are these trends, right? Because when you're trying to, let's say, uh, get into a company, right? You apply to a job, and the job description is there, and one of the requirements is for you to follow the trends. What are these trends? One misconception I see people making is when they're following these trends, they find these trends on LinkedIn or similar places, or their own small bubbles, right? I don't think that's a good approach. A trend is special to a social media platform. When you go to TikTok and you see the trends there, they're ever changing. It's a different trend every day. It's not going to be the same in Twitter. It's not going to be the same in Facebook. Or like Twitter and Facebook, they're not going to be the same. Facebook has older people using it. Twitter has millennials and Gen Z mostly. TikTok is wholly different. Instagram is different. They all have their own trends, own demographics, own age groups. One thing you do in one platform isn't going to work in the other. So following a trend really isn't like how it used to before. You have to follow trends. Let's say on your own Twitter profile, you don't see a trend happening. You don't see a meme trend. You don't see a thread. That's kind of a problematic thing because you should be seeing those trends actively. When you go to your TikTok, you should see what the new big trend is. If you're not seeing that, that's also okay. Just follow more people, spend more time on the platform, try to know it better. Whether you like the platform or not, at the end of the day, this is your job, and you should do your best to know about that platform. So, to pick up your community from the ground and just create it from scratch, what do? You be consistent, make a plan for yourself, follow trends, and create your communication around those trends, but like real trends, right? Do not listen to anybody else. Just go yourself, go into the mud, to the trenches, and check out the trends like yourself, like you're strolling trying to find your way in a forest, right? Try to find those trends yourself and think, oh, how can I use this for my own game, for my own project, for in my own tone? And I think that's going to help you a lot. Um, I think another example I can give at this point is hashtags, right? We used to use hashtags a lot because that was like kind of the only way that you could get discoverability in the past. But today, almost all social media platforms have some kind of a For You page. Twitter has it, TikTok has it, Facebook has it, Instagram has it. No matter what hashtag you use, uh, it will all just depend on the actual words or the images you use in those posts. If even if people aren't following you, if you're not using a hashtag, people will still see your posts, right? When you go to TikTok, I don't know if you guys are using TikTok. Let's say you liked or interacted with a video that is talking about one of your favorite games, right? Because you interacted with that, probably 2 videos later, 2 TikToks later, it's going to show you another TikTok from that game, but you're not following that person, but you're following the topic without even trying to follow the topic. This is kind of why hashtags are obsolete these days. You can still use them for your marketing campaigns. Let's say you're uh, celebrating the 3rd year anniversary of your game. Obviously, you can use hashtag for that because when you go to the hashtag, you will see tweets about that topic. But other than that, for general marketing, you don't have to use that anymore because it changed. It's obsolete nowadays. The trend has changed. You will see a marketing specialist maybe telling you, oh, why aren't you using hashtags? See, because it's not relevant anymore. It's obsolete. We don't have to use them. It's ever changing. Trends are just something that you got to understand and you got to use for yourself. They're inevitable. And when you try to understand them, when you understand them, your job is going to be a lot easier. You won't even have to probably try so hard to find unique ideas because the ideas will already be there. You just have to find unique ways of using those ideas. Um, let's see the next one. Coming back to my garden allegory, this is we were going to the last phase of my presentation. So the garden allegory is something that I kind of figured out myself, but I'm sure it's not the most unique idea in the world. Maybe you used it before, maybe you saw someone else using it before. The idea is simple. You gotta think of your community as your garden, right? It is going to take you a while to see it bloom, see it give you flowers, fruits, trees, everything. You can go ahead and buy patches of grass and plant them and make your garden look good. But when you don't know how to maintain it, the garden will just perish, right? It's how social media platforms and your community works too. You can go ahead, buy followers, buy engagement from bots, pay influencers to market your game. But when you don't know how to maintain that community once you get it, it's not going to work. it's going to be useless, it's going to be obsolete, and it's going to just wither and die. So what I always tell smaller teams when they try to make their own communities, just be patient, just keep consistently watering your garden, your flowers, and they're going to start blooming after a while. It's inevitable. The growth will happen once you're consistent. It is going to happen. You might think that, like, how is it gonna happen? It is going to happen. People are interested in so many things that you can't even imagine. They're gonna see something in your product if you keep marketing it, if you keep talking about it consistently. They'll just wanna see more of it after a while. They'll be interested, and one day they're gonna follow you. They're gonna start engaging with you. They're gonna bring their friends. They're gonna send your posts to their friends through DMs, and then their friends are going to come. This is how the community is gonna grow. It all comes back to you. Depends on how you run it, what language you use, what trends you follow, how you engage with your followers. It will all depend on you. You're going to grow the garden. And once the garden finished its full growth, it will all be a breeze after a while. Then you can now focus on other things while your garden, keeps its ecology going. Let's say it now has bees pollinating the flowers. It has now trees that drop, fruits, and those fruits, mix into the ground. I don't know. I'm not a gardener, but you get the idea. It's just gonna start happening by itself without you even touching anything. And then you can focus on creating a new marketing campaign, creating a big influencer campaign, doing something bigger than you usually do. You won't have to worry about actively moderating or trying to grow a community at all times. I hope that was a clear allegory. I would try to think of it that way. I think it's gonna make sense. One last thing before I end my presentation. Just when you're a community manager or someone that focuses in marketing or social media, you might think that you don't matter as much as other members of the team, right? You're not a developer. Maybe people are telling you you're not a developer. Do not please think of that way. No matter how many people tell you that, you are important. You're a valuable member of the team, and you are the voice and the face of the product. If it wasn't for you, people wouldn't be interested in the game, probably. You matter. Please always remind yourself that, and just have the pride of being something, hopefully something good. And yeah, just in general, don't forget that you matter. You matter to me. But that ends my presentation here. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you so much, John. Now time for the questions. When I worked for a PC gamer, they were looking to me to help change the tone of voice. It was typical gatekeeper gamers suggest a shift in tone of gaming communities via forums.
I couldn't understand the question.
Maybe
Can
if
read
you
that
open
again?
this to the right, you will see the Q&A tab. I think I've shown it.
Oh yeah, they were looking to me to help change the tone of voice. It was typical gatekeep gamers. How would you suggest a shift in tone for gaming communities via forums? It kind of depends on the overall tone of the community, because yeah, when you gaming communities can tend to be really traditionalist, if that's the right word, and it might be hard to change a tone of voice. Creating a tone of voice is, believe it or not, it's easier than changing a tone of voice. What I would suggest in that situation is to do it slowly, without really letting the beast wake up. Try to do it gradually. Maybe, to give an example, try to change a word that you always use, or write the sentences in different way. It's hard to give a example when you think of like a forum. It's an old thing to use, but I also use it too. But yeah, in general, just try to do it gradually in the gaming communities, especially. It's easy to create them, but changing them is a little more challenging.
Thank you.
Sure.
When is it too late to follow a trend? Sometimes if you create a post for a trend, years old, it may be gone.
Yeah, that's a challenge I personally saw on TikTok, especially. I mean, I think the most important thing, no matter how annoying it is to be quick if you want to be successful in a trend. But it also depends on the trend. After all, like I've seen many examples of a trend being relevant for a day, and then it disappears, and boom, next week it's back. So what I would suggest is just go with it. If it's not too much work, if it's just a TikTok video, let's say, still go for it. It's not going to really take away too much from you. There, you don't have like magical engagement points that gonna be lowered. If you want to follow a trend, just follow it. It doesn't really matter, I think, if you're late or not. What matters is that you're putting content out there. Nobody's gonna call you out saying, "Oh, this is not relevant today. Why are you posting this?" Just don't really overthink that much. If you want to post about it, just go ahead. It's all right.
Next question. After building the community, how can it be maintained? Like, what are the best ways to keep in contact with the community?
Just engagement, the magic word. I'm talking about replies, just being organic with the community, trying to understand what they're interested in, maybe create contests for them, marketing campaigns for them, or just engagement campaigns in general. Maybe engage with their favorite content creators. Just in general, try to engage with them to keep them in your sphere, because I told you there are many communities, and no matter how good your game is, if another game is better, they're just going to go to it. So you got to give the community something for them to stick by you. And that's going to be your personality, your tone, the way you manage them, right? If your personality, your tone of voice is something that they're going to like, then they're going to stick with you. So try to engage with them with your own tone of voice. Try to understand what they like, why they would want to stick with you, and just go with that. I think that's the best way to keep in contact with your community and to keep them in your bubble at all times.
Maybe one more question from my side. We have many people who are interested in being or becoming or developing their career as a community. Where could they start? Maybe like where to start for those that want to be a community managers?
I would say try to make your own community first. I know that sounds big, but in today's social media, it really isn't that hard. Maybe try your hand in content creation. I know a lot of content creators who turned community managers, and these are like smaller content creators. They're not like big, massive creators. Just try to learn how to create content on social media, because at the end of the day, that is what marketing is. A content creator, for example, markets a game for you, to you, or a subject. I think that is a good way of starting, and then that is something also you can show to a recruiter as your portfolio. See, this is what I did by myself. Like, try to form your own thing on social media, have your own identity, and I think that's gonna help you a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jorjan. Thank you, everyone. If you have more questions, Jorjan can stay here in the backstage and answer those.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Oleg.